of John Boys of Boys Construction for us to talk through in a little bit of detail some of the issues that the construction industry have faced through the coronavirus pandemic. So we've brought John together today with Dave Lord, Head of Construction at Burnley College, and myself, Paul Sharples, Business Solutions Manager at the college, to talk through some of those issues and to understand from real business what the challenges are and how we as a college are working to try to support various businesses across East Lancashire and the wider area. So I'm going to start off by handing over to David Lord, Head of Construction, who's going to lead and go through the Q&A session, and hopefully this will be interesting for everybody listening. So over to you, David.
Thank you very much, Paul. Hi, John.
Hi, Dave. You okay?
Yeah, great. Yeah. So I've got a question for you, John. What are your current challenges, and how is it impacting on your business practices?
Well, business practices wise, we've had to adapt very quickly. So obviously Zoom, Microsoft Teams, such like, they've been very helpful in keeping things going. Clearly, it's just not quite the same as the physical presence and physical meetings, particularly on the construction business. There's a lot of need to be on site and see things. But from a personal point of view and a professional point of view, it's been very helpful to keep that going. Certainly a lot more use of email and such like to keep things going. But there are positives. In other words, you know, the greater use of technology has kept things going to a certain degree. We've had to be more resourceful in terms of spreading our net further afield to try obtain resources, and that in itself creates cost challenges at times, and certainly time challenges. The industry at the moment is fragmented in terms of there's a lot of people that are saying that they're open for business, but they can't necessarily get hold of key items of material. So it's very difficult for us reporting to a client to give them a clear steer in terms of how long a certain aspect of a project will take, or when a certain phase will be completed, because it changes on a daily basis. That said, our clients have been very supportive of us, so it has been quite refreshing, really. You know, we've got some really good relationships with clients at the moment, which helps get you through.
Can I just come in there? So obviously you've talked a little bit about resourcing and some of the ways in which you're communicating as a business. So the resource challenges that you've got, I take it you're referring to materials and those types of things, is it?
Predominantly materials. I think there are certain, you know, people don't have the same opinion in terms of returning to work. You know, some people, you've got to put safe practices in place. We've had to change our practices on site, and I can go into that in a bit more detail later. But so certain people don't want to return to site. That's not necessarily Boys employees, but our supply chain who work for specialists or whatever. Then there are other businesses who see it that to come back just at the moment is perhaps just not right for them, in terms of it costs them so much money to operate as a business, and they need to have so much turnover, etc., etc. So everybody's taking different views and different decisions in how they operate as a business. So that is going to take time to feed through to a bit of normality. So it is fragmented at the moment.
Okay, thanks, John. And just the final thing on that, do you have a view of how you will return to kind of a normal service in sort of timelines, or is that not something that's even on the radar as yet?
I would say that the rest of this year is going to be very slow. We're remaining optimistic. We're working with our clients to come up with solutions, and we've put a lot in place on site. You know, simple things like visors, better hand washing, greater spacing, phasing your tea breaks, and so on and so forth if you're using a canteen, and trying to stay right on top of looking at methods of work, and can a certain task be carried out in a different way. using safe distancing methods. So that's ongoing. It's a real hot topic at the moment.
Okay, thank you, John.
Yeah,
So a question from me there then. So in terms of boys' recovery planning, what sort of things are you considering to assisting you in enabling social distancing and working on what would ordinarily have been sort of very packed building sites and that type of thing? I'm keen to understand how that's going to work from an active construction site.
Yeah, it's a very good question. And at the moment, you can imagine we had a situation when things pre-COVID, excuse me, pre-COVID, it was, you might have average of 20 to 40 personnel on site. That dropped down post-COVID to either close down the site completely or somewhere between 6 and 20 personnel on site. It just depends how large your site is. Can you plan every day and move people to certain parts of the building where they're not in conflicting on other people's safe social distances and so on and so forth? There's a lot of literature out there, a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of management time spent trying to pull that together into sort of easy, simple, bite-sized chunks that you can relay to people on site and say, look, this is what we want you to do. We've got your interests at heart. We'll try and keep you safe. And this is how we're doing it. PPE is a typical one, of course, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of businesses out there offering all manner of sort of hand wash stations, PPE, so on. And we've got to try to make sense of all that and try to get what is the best option for us as a business, and how do we kind of start trying to rack it up as we go, you know what I mean? And I think that the final third will improve dramatically. At the moment, it's very, very slow upward curve in terms of improved productivity. And yes, shift working may well have to be the norm, but at the moment, the industry's kind of resisting that, I sense, at the moment.
Okay. Thanks, John. I mean, your responses there sort of lead into Dave's question next, I guess, in terms of sort of moving ahead with your businesses over the coming, I guess, days, weeks, and months. It's likely to be, isn't it? So over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, and it's a good insight as well. Yeah. So aside from restarting your business, John, what do you envisage to be your biggest hurdles to be then? What's the biggest challenge you're going to face?
Well, I think every business is concerned how, is it going to continue to make money? Is it continue to thrive? People don't, businesses don't want to let people go. People are a valuable commodity, but there are clearly signs in the media that concern you in terms of how we're going to move forward as a business. Clients are starting to take different views in terms of how we should handle this. A number of our clients at the moment are saying, look, let's work together and formulate the best way forward. We understand you've got to operate as a business. We understand you've got to make a profit, and therefore we're prepared to work with you. New inquiries coming through are starting to turn that back onto the contractors really and say, right, you take all the risk. We want a finish date that you can commit to. And I think you've got to be very bold to be able to do that just at the present time. I'm sure at some point, maybe later this year, I'm sure it will be a lot easier to make those commitments. But at the moment, because it's so patchy in terms of materials, in particularly not being readily available, it is a challenge.
Yeah, big challenge, yeah, John. We're facing the same challenges getting materials to a college, and that's nowhere near on the scale of what you're dealing with. So yeah, thank you for that, John. Over to you, Paul.
Thanks, John. So I'm going to ask a question that's a little bit away from sort of the COVID conversation. However, it's still quite apt in terms of recruitment of staffing and apprentices and so on and so forth. Really. So as a levy paying organisation, looking ahead, what's your view now on the recruitment of apprentices into your business with maybe the uncertainty, the pressures on recruiting new staff with not necessarily knowing what that sort of your productivity and production is going to be like? What's the thoughts of Boys Construction on the recruitment side of things at the moment?
Well, there will always be a need for apprentices because you've got people who are going out, leaving the industry, whether that be retirement or taking a different, career path, whatever. And there's no one thing that makes you think, yeah, we need an apprentice. It tends to be a series of events that sort of say, yeah, we need a joinery apprentice. It might be type of work that you're taking on, or it could be there's a clear market demand for a certain type of business. So we'll take a view on that over time, and it is a well thought out path, and it does take time to come to that decision in terms of recruitment. What I would say to apprentices is that, you're only just about to come into this industry, and by the time you've completed your apprenticeship, the world will be a completely different place. And I think, there's going to be short-term pain, but longer term, I'm sure we'll come out of this, a better industry anyway. And I think there will be opportunities there for new apprentices to get a good job.
Can I just come in there then? So I'm just going to go to Dave now, just for him to share some of the things that as a college we are choosing to do. We've noticed a lot of communication coming into us from parents and applicants is that kind of concern around, I really want to be an apprentice. What do I do if I can't get that apprenticeship this August, September, for the next sort of 6 months whilst businesses pick their recruitment back up? So I'm just going to go to Dave to share what the Burnley College divisions are doing in terms of kind of a pre-apprenticeship program. Dave, do you want to share that for a couple of seconds, please?
Yeah, of course, yeah, because a lot of these young students that have applied, for apprenticeship programs, and we want them to go into the industry because that's what they have a real keen interest in. So we've done a pre-apprenticeship program that will be led by our trainer assessors. So they're the trainer assessors that come out to site that would normally work with the employer. They will actually teach them in the workshop and show them the skills that they need in order to continue and then eventually do get an apprenticeship. And the relationship between the student and the trainer assessor has already been formed. So once an employer decides then, yes, we now need an apprentice, we've got that triangulated approach where we can all talk about it, and the employer and the student and the TA have been working together for quite a while. So it's a really good opportunity for the students to go down that pathway if they don't get the apprenticeship when they would want to normally start in August or during the summer period. So we have put a plan in place for that.
So from an employer point of view, John, so let's say your recruitment was delayed because you wanted to take in and understand what it looked like in August, September, October. Is a pre-apprenticeship program something that you feel would be of benefit to those young people that were desperate to be an apprentice?
I would definitely say yes, Paul, because unfortunately apprenticeships and so on do tend to be the first area that are affected when there's a downturn. And I think because there's that business uncertainty at the moment, the first thing that businesses might consider, one of a number of things, but might consider is not immediately taking on an apprentice. That said, there's still a lot of opportunity out there. The housing market, we sell houses, and we've only had one person pull out of a housing sale, and we've actually sold two whilst we've been in the COVID-19 situation. Not massive steps, but there's clearly people out there that believe that things will come good, and they want to make the most of that whilst they can. So good luck to them.
Thanks, John. I want to go to Dave now on a question around advice for apprentices. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. So that really leads us on, John, to really my final question, really, and it's from your point of view as an employer. What advice would you give to our current apprenticeship applicants that are looking for employment in the construction industry from this August this year?
First things first, as I said earlier on, by the time you come through your apprenticeship, the industry will be in a better shape, and will be in a completely different place in terms of the world and business and so on. So don't give up at the first hurdle. It's a tremendous industry to be in. There's so many facets to it. whether that be building schools, working on motorways, building tunnels, building homes. There's so many aspects of industry, and you come across so many different people. Technology is always changing, so there are so many technical challenges, and the industry is quite a lot about relationships, and I think that's also part of it as well. People do enjoy going to work of the morning, I would like to think. So I think, there's a lot to be to look forward to in the industry. There's so many aspects that you could end up, you might start your path in one aspect of apprenticeship, but actually it could develop you in so many other areas.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
That's good insight. Thank you.
So the final question from me. So as a college, we are always looking to work with employers across all of our divisions, and are currently just putting together an updated employer engagement strategy to make it very clear to the college how we expect divisions to consult, work, support employers, etc. So, and in order to do that, we need to ensure that our curriculum is fit for purpose. So what we are teaching the apprentice and construction workers of the future is right, and it meets the needs of your business. So one of the things within that strategy is that our divisions work with employers to build focus groups. Some divisions call them advisory boards, others call them vision groups, and that type of thing. So as a leading construction employer within East Lancashire, how would you envisage a construction group coming together to achieve that?
Well, I think because the industry's changed just recently, we're using Microsoft Teams for this interview, for instance. That is, the improvement in terms of having meetings now in the short term. I think that will stay in the industry. You know what I mean? And the number of times you'll know yourself. Somebody asks you to go to a meeting in another town, another place, and you're scrolling through next week, the week after, or whatever it might be, before you have a slot in your diary. Whereas a Teams meeting can be set up in hours, even, perhaps the odd day or so. So I think people will be more readily available to talk and give their advice in this kind of environment. I'm not saying let's park any one-on-one meetings and personal meetings, because I do think that the personal touch is important. But in terms of keeping in touch and maintaining that contact in sort of shorter bursts is perhaps the way forward. And obviously the industry's changing so quickly. All aspects of industry are changing so quickly, and exchanging ideas is very refreshing and helps different business leaders, I'm sure.
Thanks for that, John. Appreciate your response there. So with the focus group and the vision group things, I believe you've already been in conversation with Dave about being part of one of those groups. So we're hopeful that that'll develop, and then the ultimate goal is that as a college, the divisional advisory boards, if we just use that term for now, will come together once a year as a college-wide representation. So if there were 10 construction companies on that board, there may be 2 construction companies then represented on the college-wide board, to help us understand everything we can try to sort of work with you guys about, really. So once we understand and know what that looks like, I'll be coming and asking you to help us, if that's all right with you. So we've concluded the questions that we had. I wonder, Dave, if you wanted to add anything or bring this to a close.
Yeah, I mean, again, John, thank you for giving your time. I know time's precious, especially what we're going through at the moment. And I do appreciate what you do for the college and for the students. You've come in and done quite a number of things for us now. The Young Construction Academies you've been in. You're on the Vision Group, John. So the vision's going forward. We should have had a meeting on the 1st of May, but due to what happened with COVID, at least we can do it through Teams now. So I just want to thank you on behalf of myself, John, as the head of construction, but most importantly, the college and the students. So thank you for giving your time up.
Thanks very much, David. Yeah, thanks, Paul.
Thanks, John.